Aloha, and thank you for joining me here on this Wednesday afternoon. I'm Dylan and Schatz in the Hawaii News Now Digital Center with this special live stream. We are awaiting a live news conference with Governor Josh Green as he prepares to announce funding for housing-related projects. Let's send you live now to the Hawaii State Capitol building.
Good day here. First, let me say how much I appreciate Senator Schatz. Brian, you've been extraordinary for us. We go way back, and he and the congressional delegation that have been just delivering. So let's talk about what's happening today. First, we're recognizing that we have a housing crisis in our state, and Senator Schatz has been fighting hard to make sure we can actually build houses. We're going to hear from him, our HUD Regional Administrator, Jason Pooh. So, Jason, thank you for being here. We also today want to thank the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development Director, Mary Alice Evans. Thank you very much for their critical roles in securing this federal grant. You're hearing a lot about funding and grants and so on, but we've been doing several things to deal with the housing crisis this past year. Signature legislation, critical legislation was passed. Thank you very much to the legislature and Rep. Evelyn, Senator Chang. The team, the leadership have really stepped up for us. So we had Senate Bill 3202, which addresses zoning. We have to get more housing inventory for our families so they don't leave. I'm tired of losing people to Las Vegas. We also have been using emergency proclamations to the best of our ability to decrease some of the barriers to build housing. And I want to check with everybody. Has the sky fallen? No, it hasn't. We're working through some of these challenges because we want to empower people like Hakeem, who does public housing for us, and all of the developers in the state that are willing to do smart, safe developments that don't hurt our environment, that actually get us housing. So today we're proud to announce something additional, which is resources. $6.6 million in a new federal grant. I'm going to let Senator Schatz unpack this, but this is based in many ways on his Yes in My Backyard legislation, YIMBY. I have actually printed shirts that say YIMBY now because it is that important. We cannot have people saying not in my backyard any longer, or we won't have housing for our local families. So this program is special. It rewards states and local governments who are reforming their land use policies and removing barriers to building housing. We have challenges with our infrastructure. This will help. We're facing all kinds of moments in our state that if we don't meet them, we're going to lose our young minds. So I'm really grateful that, Brian, you've done this for us. We, like I said, have passed this other landmark legislation, which you start to see implemented by the counties. And they hear from their constituents the same way. They don't want to see our young local families lead. So it is difficult. There is not a silver bullet, but there are a lot of different ways we can address this. It takes this collective effort from the county, and I'm really grateful to see Chair Waters. Tommy, good to see you, brother. It's kind of wild to see us in this way. I'm appreciative of it. And then their work, along with the other county leaders and the mayors, will make the difference. This pro-housing program is a groundbreaking approach to address our national housing shortage. Senator secured an additional $100 million for this. This is a serious benefit to communities all across the country. He is focused on Hawaii, but it helps other people too. I was just with 25 Democratic senators as we spoke with the president, and all of those guys and our Republican colleagues that are governors are also benefiting from the work that Senator Schatz and his team is doing in D.C. So let me just again say thank you. And, team, this is the way we do it. We have these great grants, we win these awards, and we change the way we do housing. Next generation will remember us for it. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Governor Green, and I want to thank the HUD team and all of the elected and appointed officials and community leaders for being here. It is really an auspicious day. This is a long time coming. I actually want to thank my transportation and HUD staff for putting together this national YIMBY program, and I want to thank state government for bidding on it. It's not that easy to pursue federal funding, and for the civil servants who have to run the programs, they don't get a better title, they don't get any more money. They're doing it because they think it's important. So I want to recognize their excellent work. The funding that we are announcing today comes from the Pro Housing Program, which I created 2 years ago to reward state and local governments that are making it easier to build housing. And this came from my chairmanship, in which I try to provide as much in the way of resources for affordable housing as I possibly can. And one of the things that I learned is that there is no dollar amount that will solve this problem. You certainly need sufficient resources, but you also need to make it easier for people to build the thing that we say we want. We are creating a shortage of the thing that we say we want. And for far too long, through our own policies and regulations, we've made it virtually impossible to build homes for local people. And so it's no wonder why there are so few homes on the market, and those that are on the market go for astronomical prices. Finding an affordable place to live is harder than ever, and while it's challenging nationally, and this is something that's changed over the last 10 years, this used to be a big city and Hawaii problem, and now it's rural, and it's red states and blue states and purple states and exurbs and suburbs. There's not a place in the United States of America that doesn't experience an acute housing crisis. But I want you to look at the data. A recent report found that Honolulu was the 6th least affordable place to live on the planet. Not in the country, on the planet. And so, this is not a political talking point. This is a crisis. This is a crisis that threatens to gut our community socially and economically. And one of the things that has given me the most hope over the last 6 months is that we have taken not one action, not 3 actions, but a series of actions at the federal, county, and state government level to try to get our arms around this. It has taken 3, 4, 5 decades to create a thicket of regulations and processes and procedures that make it nearly impossible for us to create the thing that we want. And so it is not something we can wave a wand at and fix instantaneously. But the most important thing that we have now that we didn't have a year ago is political will and a recognition that this problem isn't made up. This problem isn't a talking point. This is a problem that if you consult the data, you will see exists. We are the 6th most expensive place to try to afford to live on the globe. So this is not about partisanship. This is not about factions in the legislature. This is not even about communities versus communities. This is about a very basic question, which is, are we going to allow our kids and our grandkids and our cousins and our neighbors to be able to make the math work? It is so hard to afford to live in Hawaii between utilities and gas and groceries, but the biggest cost driver for anybody is either your rent or your mortgage. And this is not a problem that is unsolvable. This is a problem that is solvable, and the way to solve this problem is to create the thing that we all say we want. And this grant will help us to do that. And I want to thank everybody for being involved in this, and I am so pleased about the partnership that we have with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Jason Poo from HUD.
Well, aloha, and thank you, Senator Schatz. I am Jason Poo, HUD Regional Administrator for the region, and I'm just really thrilled to be here today to help celebrate this grant award for the state of Hawaii. President Biden and Vice President Harris have made historic investments in affordable housing because it is essential to people's lives, as the governor and senator have noted. When we wake up in a safe, decent home, we can focus on the things that matter most to us in our lives. Like staying healthy, like taking care of our families, like doing well in our jobs, pursuing education, and making contributions in our communities. Unfortunately, for decades, housing supply has not kept up with housing demand. And here in Hawaii, you're lucky to have elected officials who really get it. leaders who understand that all levels of government and the private sector are needed to work together to build more homes. Senator Schatz has been a visionary in the Senate, ensuring that HUD has the resources it needs to support state and local work, including here in Hawaii. And you've heard about how he has been the principal architect of this entire grant opportunity. Governor Green has also been an inspiration, and your governor demonstrates the unusual ability to connect the dots between community challenges and available solutions. With a shortage of available units, an aging housing stock, and rising rents, addressing the cost and availability of housing is one of the greatest priorities for communities across the country, and as you can see here in Hawaii as well, as one of the governor and the senator's top priorities. And that is why the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, under legislation authored by Senator Schatz, has established the Pathways to Removing Obstacles to Housing, or Pro-Housing, competitive grant program. Pro-Housing is a first-of-its-kind competitive grant program to further develop, evaluate, and implement housing policy plans, to improve housing strategies, and to facilitate affordable housing production and preservation. The first round of $85 million in pro-housing grant awards was incredibly well received and greatly oversubscribed. HUD received more than 175 applications from 47 states and territories, and we were only able to make 21 awards across the country in this round. For every $1 available in funding, $13 was requested in applications. So states and local communities told us about the barriers that they identified from locally led processes, including those here in the state of Hawaii. We heard about the need to lower housing costs for renters and homebuyers, the need to make permitting easier, the need to invest in infrastructure, and the need to fill funding gaps. Among this steep competition, the state of Hawaii's application stood out among all these other applicants. You don't just have big challenges here in affordable housing, but you also have work that you've been doing for a long time, wins under your belt, and also big ideas about what's to come. And so that's why I am thrilled to be able to announce that HUD will award over $6.6 million in pro-housing funding to the state of Hawaii. This funding will build upon the impressive work the state has already done to advance housing supply through land use reform, transit-oriented development, investments in affordable housing, and assistance to low-income home buyers. It's this kind of catalytic investment that HUD plans to award in round 2 of this program as well. So, since Hawaii will need about 50,000 new units by 2025 to meet the housing demand, we certainly encourage the state of Hawaii to also apply in round 2. Pro-housing will allow the state to establish a statewide infrastructure bank to expand available funds for housing enabling infrastructure. The infrastructure bank will make financing available for improvements in water and wastewater, roads and bridges, clean energy, energy and water efficiency, and brownfields remediation. Additionally, the state will use pro-housing funds to support the implementation of recommendations from the State Transit-Oriented Development Council, including improvements to water, sewers, and roads. In turn, these upgrades will enable the construction of new homes and support the preservation of existing homes. Finally, this funding will boost local capacity to address barriers to housing. Hawaii will expand its capacity to work with counties as they address local housing and land use regulations, and update land use policies and invest in communities. So I can't wait to hear about the impact of this award for the state of Hawaii, and to see renovated homes, newly constructed homes, and to meet new homeowners in the years to come. As a pro-housing winner, the state of Hawaii's staff will also be invited to participate in a technical assistance forum with other cities, counties, states, and regional entities who have received funding. This cohort will provide opportunities for peer learning, discussions on how to address barriers to housing, and opportunities to elevate emerging best practices. And the last piece of good news I already kind of shared, but I'll reiterate here. Later this summer, HUD will launch round 2 of the pro-housing competition with an additional $100 million in funding available to communities thanks to Senator Schatz. The state of Hawaii is welcome to apply for the second round, and we wish you the best of luck in doing so. And with that, I would like to invite the governor and the senator back up so we may do a ceremonial check presentation. I also want to thank all of the state and local leaders who are here today and who are contributing to addressing this housing crisis head on. You are leaders in this nation, and we will uphold your successes as a model for other communities. So congratulations once again to the state of Hawaii. Let's see if you're gonna look from the bottom. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Should we give this check to Tommy?
Sometimes they make me sign this, but I don't have 6.6 million.
Everybody media clear?
Absolutely. And thank you to Senator Schatz for his, diehard support in office, the work that your office does in DC.
Any questions here, Mike? Yes.
Okay, at this time, we will take questions from the media, with the first being from Ashley, Hawaii Public Radio.
Thanks so much. I kind of have two questions. So the first one is, can these funds be used to help remediate some of the issues we're seeing with the insurance problem? Like, will some of these infrastructure improvements help, keep insurance companies in the state? And then the second question is, how are the programs decided, like which projects are going to be funded by them?
That's it.
Where's Scott going? Is that all right?
Yes, of course. I'll remind people, one of the things that we're doing, we've set up two groups to deal with our concerns about the increasing costs of insurance. One's our climate action team that addresses the disasters that have occurred and how we're going to deal with the resources that we'll need going forward. And the other one is specific at the request of Senate President and Speaker of the House to address the rising costs of insurance for condos right now, and that already got launched on July 1st. A real quick answer is, the more good planning we do, the more resources that we put into housing, the better off we will be long term to deal with this insurance crisis. But Scott?
Thank you, Governor. Aloha, Scott Glenn, Senior Advisor, Federal Affairs, Climate and Housing for Governor. The question on what the funds can be used for are including the infrastructure bank that our speakers mentioned, also some particular investments in affordable housing projects across the counties. With the award from HUD, we had initially applied for over $9 million. We received 6.6. We were thankful to have received that, one of the most in the country, and so we'll be reassessing what we had initially proposed and working with HUD to refine what will actually get funded based on the funds received. Thank you.
Our next question comes from Victoria, one of the Blue Star advertisers.
Hi. So the housing crisis isn't really new. There have been a lot of initiatives for affordable housing. Where do you think we as a state kind of stand on that? Do you think we've progressed, regressed, or kind of stayed the same over the years? And kind of two-part question. But
Well, let me answer the first question, and you can get to the follow-up. Look, I think there's two ways to look at this. One is that it is an absolutely urgent problem, and it has gotten worse. But the only way to turn this around is through the political will to make changes in our legislation, in law and in rule and in process. And on that, we should feel very optimistic that we now have elected appointed officials, community leaders who are demanding non-incremental change. And so that's the very hopeful news, but those are the kinds of things that are going to take a couple of years before they work their way through the system and enable people to actually build housing. Construction timelines, financing timelines, all of that takes some amount of time. So it's not like you just pass a bill and there's 10,000 units that pop up somewhere. So the good news is that we, I think, are turning this thing around. But the bad news is that we're the sixth most expensive place on the planet.
And I'll add, and then maybe we'll have Scott talk about the numbers a little bit. For instance, I was on Big Island yesterday. They've teed up 8,100 units that are in the process of being built now. And they're getting similar successes here. We've been going to groundbreaking after groundbreaking here on Oahu because so much attention and resources have been put into this by the council and the mayor on Oahu, and I think I could say that about each county. Also, we authorized 10,800 units for public housing, which that was an announcement a while back, and the legislation that you saw was pretty big about a month ago, and that's that you can have 2 ADUs per property as long as they meet the standards of the county councils. So that's part of the future. You know, a lot of people are living in more modest, small houses as they start off their lives, and we're trying to meet that future. That was a big change, and frankly, it's going to be very important on Maui because, as you all know, we've authorized 1,044 units to replace in transition those houses that burned down, and we've got 6,000 total houses in the pipeline over there, which are going to be really necessary given what was lost. So most of our activities as far as priorities are going towards housing at the moment, just because it's that important.
Okay.
Do you have more numbers, Scott, or that's it?
If you'd like.
Please, yes.
Thank you. As Administrator Pu mentioned, there's a study from 2019 saying we had a 50,000 unit shortfall. We're currently doing research to see where we stand with respect to that number. But I can tell you that as of this month, we have over 60,000 affordable housing units in the pipeline being planned across the state to be built over the next decade. And in the next couple years, we have at least 13,000 affordable housing units on their way. And that's a floor. So that's not counting all the market rate units that are out there.
I'll just add that earlier today, I also had an opportunity to meet with the governor's housing cabinet, Scott and Lindsay as well. And I was really impressed with the work that everyone here is doing to address this housing crisis. This particular award will help the state establish an infrastructure bank, which will then go on to create financing. You know, hopefully millions and billions of dollars worth of financing to be able to build the housing enabling infrastructure that is so sorely needed here on Oahu and throughout the state. It'll also enable the ability to work with the counties in addressing permitting and other issues that slow down the process. Something that Senator Schatz also mentioned that's been part of the reason these layers and layers of regulation that have built up over time have made it so difficult to build. So that's why we think this investment, this grant, will be catalytic, will be transformative for the state, and that's why we're proud to be able to make it in what was, as I mentioned, a very, very highly competitive round. With only 21 awards out of 175 applications around the country, then it was clear that this type of investment is what we sorely need in order to be able to meet the demands and the challenges that are faced.
Follow-up question, Victoria, Honolulu Star Advertiser.
So the next question. So this award, what's like an immediate effect or impact that you hope to see out of this big sum of money?
Well, I will tell you that the housing team that was referenced needs to put these policies into place, and it takes a lot of work to move. We're talking about billions of dollars of housing that is ultimately going to get built, but this sets the stage policy-wise, which we saw these big policy changes. It sets the stage to get, development after development off the ground. The work that HHFDC does with our public housing authority, with independent developers is complex. It really is. And, we have finally brought together a group of about 30 people, as you saw with the work group that we had under the emergency proclamation, to do a lot for housing. We are not going to back down from that, but we need some of these catalyst dollars to keep them going. So that's one of many things. I won't cash this check personally. I will hand it over to our housing leaders.
Anyone else? Okay, closing remarks.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to do something I rarely do, which is not speak. I'm going to turn it right over to Senator because he's our YIMBY champion.
Well, Thank you, Governor. Thank you to the HUD team. Thanks to Jason. I want to thank everybody in this room for caring about this issue. Look, housing is the economic challenge of this generation. And we are all stepping up together. This is going to be hard. This is going to be contentious. We're going to have a few arguments along the way. We're going to have some difficulty along the way. Not everything is going to go perfectly. But I do want people in Hawaii to understand that the political leadership understands the urgency of the housing crisis, and that we understand that we simply need more housing for everybody. Thank you. So you're just going to walk out?
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you have been watching a live news conference with Governor Josh Green and U.S. Senator Brian Schatz, along with a Pacific Regional Administrator there at the Hawaii State Capitol building, just announcing some amazing steps there regarding some funding for Hawaii's housing. As we all know, the cost of housing here in Hawaii is astronomical, as you heard them say, and also the struggle to build new and affordable housing and keep it affordable. That's what this press conference was all about today, announcing this incredible grant given to the state of Hawaii to address this housing crisis. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had a crew there at the Hawaii State Capitol building, and we'll be bringing you more on this story in later editions of Hawaii News Now. But that does it for me here. I'm Dylan and Chatta in the H&N Digital Center. Thank you so much for tuning in. Aloha.